Started. Good morning, I'm Luis Sanchez and I'm the lead developer of MonoDevelop, and today I'm going to talk a bit about the project. I'm going to give a quick review of the features that MonoDevelop has in all the releases we have done, and I will show what features that the new release we just did on last December has, and what are we planning for the next release, which would be 2.4. So first of all, a quick review of what have we been doing until now. The first stable release of MonoDevelop was like in March 2008. It was a release very focused to GTK# development. So what we wanted to do is IDE for developing GNOME applications. So we have a very strong support for C# and basic support for other languages. We have some basic refactoring operations. We have some initial support for loading Visual Studio projects. And we had quite a lot of add-ins for version control, for packaging, generating tarbals, generating makefiles, for NUnit, for testing, and for localization. So after all, what we wanted with this release was to be self-hosting. So we could use MonoDevelop to build MonoDevelop itself. I mean, in the whole development cycle from all the phases of development. So we did that, and the next release was like 1 year later. Maybe we should close the door. No, it's great. So the next release was like 1 year later, and we were listening our users. What they demanded, the most demanded feature was the debugger. So we did the debugger. We integrated the MonoDebugger (MDB). We also improved the code editor, the text editor. What we did was to move to a new text editor, which is a managed text editor, fully implemented on C#. This allowed us to add some advanced features like code folding, the split view, and incremental search, and other features. And we also improved our support for Visual Studio. In fact, what we did is to change our project service, so we can now we are actually using the Visual Studio file format, the MSVL file format, as a native format for our projects, and we now support the latest Visual Studio versions for that. And we also improve many other areas of MonoDevelop, like we introduced C# support. We had multi-selection in the solution path. We could do operations on several files at once. We had go to file command, a very useful command for navigating on the source code, and assembly browser, and other stuff. The last stable release we have done is 2.2, which was released on last December. And the main focus of that release was to reach a wider audience, or to reach a wider user base. So we wanted MonoDevelop to be useful to more users. So we decided to focus on make it multi-platform. And so in this release is the first release that we officially support Windows and Mac and as target platforms. We also introduced the new soft debugger that MonoDevelop has now. So we integrated it in MonoDevelop, there was also this iPhone add-in which allows development of iPhone applications. And another change we did is to remove the GPL code we had remaining, so we could change the license to a more license which allow implementing add-ins which are not GPL compatible. So MonoDevelop is now LGPL, and a lot of credit goes to the remote guys, which helped a lot on the rewriting some of the code. And we also improved a lot of things in the text editor. We had a new refactoring and infrastructure, which allows us to implement new refactoring operations. We had other coding helpers like code templates with placeholders. We had a new code formatting engine for formatting the source code for C#, together with what we call formatting policies, which allows specifying settings for formatting at project level. We had new code generation operations, the custom execution modes, which I am going to show now, and well, a whole bunch of new add-ins like the MVC add-in for ASP.NET, Moonlight add-in, Python. Some of them were already available in previous releases, but in beta, let's say, not supported state. In this version, they were released. Okay, so I'm going to show some of those features. So as I was saying, one of the main changes in this last release is that we now officially support Windows and Mac. Well, I don't have here Mac or Windows to show, but we had to make some changes in MonoDevelop to adapt to those platforms. In Mac, what we did, because our goal was to make MonoDevelop feel more native to those platforms. So, for example, in MonoDevelop, what we did was to change the workbench, and so it would use the main menu of macOS. So it would show like a native application. We changed the shortcut of the command, so it would use more Mac-friendly shortcuts. And we even adapt the behavior of the text editor, so it would behave like Mac text editors, because they have some specific ways of navigating the code and word splitting and so on. So we try to make it feel more native to Mac. In the Windows case, we did more or less the same. Well, in fact, we don't have to change some of do these deep changes, but we only had to provide, for example, a key binding set, which it's more like Visual Studio, so people can choose it. But one of the things that we had to do is make it possible to use the Microsoft.NET framework and use as well the Mono framework for development. Because right now, when you install MonoDevelop on Windows, it is going to run on top of Microsoft.NET. It is not going to install Mono by default. And but you can use as well Mono if you want to develop later on. So what we did is to introduce a new concept, the concept of runtime inside the MonoDevelop. We already had the concept of target framework, so you can develop an application and say, okay, this this application is going to target the 2.0 framework, which has a set of features, set of predefined assemblies, or it is going to target the 3.5 framework. But let's say orthogonal to this, there is the runtime you want to choose to build that application and run it. So here in the toolbar, there is in addition to the configuration you want to use to test an application, there is a list of frameworks which are installed in the machine, so you can select which framework you want to use for building and executing that application. In this case, all of them are parallel Mono installations. On Windows case, it would show Microsoft.NET framework or Mono framework. Okay. So I can choose any of them. And also, we had to, in the Windows case, we had to implement the specific add-ins for debugging. So there is a debugging backend specific for Windows, Win32 debugger, and this is also backend for the Subversion add-in, which is using Sharp SVN as backend. So what else? Yes, well, about the framework, about the runtimes, there is also this run with command here, which is new, this menu, which also allows to run an application on a specific framework. So you maybe are developing using Microsoft.NET and building on Microsoft.NET, and you decide to try it on Mono, then you can just do a run with and select here the framework, the runtime. This menu here is what it lists here are execution modes. So these are different ways of running an application. And this is an extensible menu. So add-ins can add new execution modes here. This is also new for 2.2. And right now there are some modes like running an application with custom parameters, or using some specific framework, or using the debugger. And if I use, for example, custom parameters, I can decide to run this application with some arguments, using some working directory or some environment variable. There is also a Mono Options tab, which allows me to set a lot of Mono runtime specific options, which you would usually set using the command line switches or environment variables. That you can set them here, and you can run this application using those settings, and you can also save those specific parameters and give it a name. And say, okay, this is going to be stored for this project, and I run it. So from now on, when I go to the run with menu, I can see this mode here, so I can reuse it for several executions. So what's interesting about that is that this mode list here is available on every feature of the MonoDevelop which may run assemblies. So for example, if I have an unit test like here, I could do, okay, run this test with any of those modes here, okay, which, by the way, okay, it is not showing because, well, I can go to edit custom modes, and I said this mode is only for this project, so I can change it and make it global, and it should show now. Okay. So the other star feature of this release was the soft debugger. This soft debugger is a new debugger we had at MonoDevelop, It was developed specifically or mainly for the to give support to the iPhone add-in, so we could debug iPhone applications. And MonoDevelop has a debugging service, a debugging infrastructure, and all we did is to implement a new backend for this new debugger. So from the point of view of the user, I'm using the soft debugger or the MDB, the old debugger, MonoDebugger. It makes no difference in the GUI because it's using the same GUI. But in addition to implementing the backend for the soft debugger, we keep improving the GUI. So in this release, we added some new features like, let me show. Yes, the immediate window, which allows me to implement, to execute some commands, like, for example, let's see what's the win variable, or see the name, or I can define some variables as well, or do some basic operations. Evaluations of expressions. We also added some options, some new options which are available in the preferences. So, for example, there is a new option for when set, it is going only to step into libraries which are part of the solution. So it is not going to step into system libraries or external libraries. I can set that. There is also a flag for enabling us disabling implicit evaluation of properties. So, for example, if I disable that, no, you can see that the properties are not showing the value, and if I want to see it, I have to click on the refresh button. So this is useful when we are debugging complex applications and we don't have to have side effects while debugging, because in order to show the value, MonoDevelop has to query the value of all the properties. So this is going to may affect the target process we are debugging. It might have side effects. Sorry. Sometimes it might be useful to enable this. And there were also options for the way the members of the objects we are showing have to be grouped. We can group them for accessibility and for base class, so the base class members are shown in a different group and things like that. There is also an evaluation timeout option here in case it times out. And there is also this preferred debugger list here. So since MonoDevelop has several debugging backends, you can choose here the priority of the backend. So if you want to make sure that when passing F5 for debugging to use the soft debugger, then you can lower the to make this debugger more priority. Okay. About refactoring operations or code helper operations, we had a whole bunch of new refactoring operations, which are oops, what was that? Okay, so for example, when right-clicking on the code, I have this menu here. I can do integrate temporary variable, which integrates this one. This is also extract method, like local. This is also the inline rename. So if I'm on this variable here and I press rename, it renames live on the text editor. Okay. There is also, what's that? Some documentation exception, I don't know what's that, anyway. This is also the code generation command, which is a contextual command. So if I press Alt Insert, it shows a set of options, like, for example, I want to generate property accessor for this field, or I want to generate toString implementation which shows the value of this property. Okay, or I want to override some method from the base class. It is going to generate the code for that. And if I'm inside the method, I can, for example, write a call, generate a write line call. Or generate a null check or whatever. Okay. And finally, this is the new code formatting engine. And there is also this new format document command, which is going to format the document based on a set of formatting settings, which I can set for the project. So if I go to the project in code formatting, well, I can set a lot of formatting options. For this specific project or for a solution level, etc. So this is nice because those are not global settings but project-specific settings which are stored in the project file itself. So if you check in the project and version control, and everybody that is using this project will have the same settings. And those settings are used for this formatting command, but also for when a new file is created using a template, or for code generation as well. And we have an on-the-fly formatting option, which is not fully functional yet, but the idea is that when you are typing on the fly, it is going to format when you close a block or whatever. Okay, so for the next release, we have two main goals. One of them is to improve the usability of MonoDevelop. We think that there are some features, some ways of working with MonoDevelop which can be improved, and they can be made more user-friendly. And we want to also make it more improve the integration of the different platforms, so it looks even more native to any of the platforms we support. We plan also to improve our support for Xbuild, which means MS-Build projects. And we are using right now the MS-Build format. Xbuild is the MS-Build implementation of Mono. But we are only using the format. We are not using MS-Build or Xbuild to build the project. So we plan to support that. We will keep improving the text editor. So we are going to have there are completion groups with groups inside the completion window, have better speed and completion and other improvements. Native file dialogues, about what we were saying about platform integration. We plan to provide, when you click on open file, then it will show the open file dialog, which is native to the platform instead of showing the GTK1, and keep improving the debugger. Okay, this one. So, well, what I'm showing here is not in SVN. It's an experimental branch which I have, and where I'm trying some changes in the GUI and experimenting a bit with it and trying to get some feedback. So it's not final at all. So as you can see, some of the changes, and there is a more a shady background here with the docked pads more integrated to the background. As you can see here, more shady. There is also a new status bar which makes a more smart use of space. So for example, when I minimize one of the pads, it is going to minimize next to the status bar, so we can save a row of space here. Also some other changes we've done. I'm going to compile this, but with some errors. So I built the project, and as you can see, there are these error bubbles, what we call error bubbles, which show the compiling errors in line in the text editor. And I can browse through them quickly without having to show the error list. Okay. There is also this panel here which shows information about the build errors and warnings. And well, I'm also playing with this idea of pop-up panel here, which allows me to do some context-specific operations, like show me the first error or show me the error list, so I can browse through it, or show the build output of the build operation. Okay. Also, another change related to this is that if I do, for example, a subversion operation, like check in the changes in this project or whatever, or update, and in previous MonoDevelop versions, MonoDevelop used to always pop up an output window and show all the result of the operation here, and it is not popping up the window anymore by default, but instead to do it I have to click on the result of the operation. So I can also go here and I can click on show me the log for the last operation, and the same is true also for when I build the project. And I can also go here and see the log, or invoke to show the error list. So what I'm trying here is to apply this concept to several operations, like the one I shown, and also when I do, for example, find in files operation looking for text. Also I can show some information, so like show me the log for this search operation and all that. Okay. And there is also, well, this is a small history window, so I can see all the operations I've done until now and review all logs, all values from all the operations, so I can have a better view of.
What was the thing again?
Sorry?
What was that thing that you just showed?
This is a history of some of the operations I've done, so I can review the log of previous operations. Okay. Also, we have some nice features in the debugger. So this application I'm using here is a very simple GDK application. So it's a window with a button. When I click on it, it starts a counter. Okay, so something very easy. So I have this clicked event handler which starts a timeout. So every half a second is going to increase this counter and update the label. So if I set a breakpoint here, I can hover over it. And now there is this new pin button here. So when I click on it, this gets docked to the text editor, and it can show the values of this variable here. As you can see, it's repeating it when I step. This is stored in the user settings, so it's persistent. If I close it and reopen, oops. Well, it should show. Well, oops. Okay, I know what's happening. 1 second. I have to switch to this version here because the branch I was trying now doesn't have the latest changes from trunk, so I have to use the trunk version. Okay, so I close, reopen, and here it is. So what it does is every time the debugger is stopped, it evaluates all those floating watches and updates the values in the text editor. Okay. And another thing I'm trying to, when I'm experimenting with, is to have live watches in the editor. So here there is a new button. When you click on it, this is going to be a live watch. So if now I continue the execution of the application, it is going to update live the values on the text editor. Okay. So you could have several watches set around. When you open the file, you can see the values of the variable, which will have the value of the last time the code went through there. So it's completely, oops, okay. Some nice thing.
This is amazing stuff, by the way.
Thank you. See? Yeah, sorry.
What is printing? It's not a value, but an object.
Well, it is showing a description of the object. I mean, if it is going to, by default, it is going to show the name of the class, okay? But I mean, the debugger supports different display options. So, for example, if the object has a toString implementation, it's going to show the value of toString for that object. Or you can apply some debug display attributes to the object. So you could set an expression to be shown for that object. So that object has 3 properties. You could say, okay, show me first property, then slice, then the second property, or whatever. Okay. Of course, you can also pin one member of the object instead of the object itself. Okay. In this case, it works.
Can you show the debugger attribute working with a collection so they get an idea of what it does?
No. No, the problem is that well, maybe it's, I don't know if that is said. The problem is that for the generics collection, there is a bug which has to be, well, not a bug, but a feature which has to be implemented in the sub debugger, because in the collections, well, the debugger has to create an instance of a generic object providing some type argument, and have to be able to instantiate that type, and this is not yet supported on, but Zoltan is going to.
What about array list, for example?
And for array list, I don't remember if that is going to work, but I can try. So. Because I don't know if the 1 second. Yes, in this case it is working, so it shows count equals 1. Okay. So you can see here the values, and then see the row view of the array list here. Okay. Yeah. Stefan. 5 minutes, okay. Well, this is pretty much it. There are some other, as I said, improvements like list, code groups in the completion list. So you press shift down. Well, maybe you are not seeing this, but this is already fixed in trunk. I don't have latest. What it is doing is group the members by class name. So instead of showing a very long list of members for complex classes, it is going to show them grouped by class name. So you can quickly browse through all the members of the class. And there is also this, well, block selection. Oops. Oh, I cannot show it now. Okay. This is the block selection with Alt and move the mouse, but I have this binding set here, so I cannot show it now. But it is nice in this version because it allows typing text at several lines at once. So you can select a column and type, and it's going to type in all the columns. And those are the main changes we are planning for 2.4. One of the things we plan to do is to shorten the release time of MonoDevelop, and instead of spending 1 year adding a lot of features, we plan to shorten the release, maybe add less features, but have more frequent releases. So, okay, so that's all. See if you have any question. Yes?
think what you showed is very impressive. I had a look at MonoDevelop a month ago, getting over from Visual Studio, of course. And I noticed right away that there is a big difference in color syntax highlighting. Visual Studio also highlights class names, other variable names you create yourself. Can MonoDevelop do that? Or?
That's on the plan, yeah. There are some changes we have to do in our C# support, in the C# parser, which is going to allow to do this kind of thing, because we need some context to operation information that we don't get from the parser, and we are working on that. Okay. Yeah.
How about Git support for version control?
Sorry.
Support for version control.
Well, sooner or later it will come. I mean, as soon as Mono switches to Git, it will be a matter of days.
Something that is very interesting is some guys in the community built a full Git managed implementation based on the Java implementation called JGit. And Git shop right now is self-hosting. It is working, and they even have a GitK. The tool that lets you browse your history. They even have a GitK version of this implemented with WPF. So it's Windows only that UI. And I was, on the way here in the plan, I was thinking about doing one in GTK Sharp, but I didn't do it. But the work is there, and it supports SSH, supports stuff. It supports pretty much everything that you need to use that in self-hosting, as I said. So it only takes a volunteer to do that. And we're probably going to switch Mono's Git in about 2 or 3 months. So we'll need that.
Any other question?
Very quick announcement, but is Ivan photo forever? Yeah. Okay, great. So Dimitri is in touch with me. You can continue.
Okay, so that's all. Thank you.